ሰላም እንዴት ናችሁ? አለው እኔ ደህና ነኝ እግዚአብሔር ይመስገን። Today I want to talk to you about Amharic conjugation, okay? Remember, this is Amharic Masterclass with your master teacher, Itagasu Ndale. You can call me Ite for short. Amharic conjugation, it's important that you understand Amharic conjugation. So some of you who've been speaking English or other language, when you're about to learn Amharic, I think it's important to get the conjugation, what it looks like and everything. Let me just give you some examples and let me explain what they basically are, okay? So every sentence, speaking about a sentence is not just a collection of words. It is an arrangement of words in order to give what? Meaning. That's what a sentence is. So you can have a statement, a question, and a negative. That's what I want to talk to you about. But before I get into it, let me talk to you about what Amharic structure looks like. Amharic always starts with a subject, as English does. However, what is different about Amharic is what is followed in Amharic is not what is followed in English. That is, in Amharic, right after the subject, we have an object. And it ends with a verb. But in English, what happens is we have a subject and a verb and an object. That's how it is, okay? And one more thing regarding Amharic. I think I've talked about it in other videos, but in Amharic, the subject of a sentence is also embedded in the verb, so that the sentence can still function without the subject. But in English, it's not going to be that way. Okay? In English, if I say, Dash was a teacher, or let me just take out the dash over there, and then let me just say, was a teacher. What is this? Is it a complete sentence? Not exactly. Okay? We need a subject. But in Amharic, it is possible. I actually gave an example when I talked about it in another video. So that was, أنا ممهر نبرك, meaning I was a teacher. أنا ممهر نبرك. So the moment you say نبرك entails أنا is embedded in نبرك. However, in English, doesn't actually show who's speaking, right? But if you attach a subject, we definitely know that. So let's start with a statement. What does a statement look like? And what does a question look like in Amharic? And what does a negative look like in Amharic? By the way, I'm just going to give you examples here so that later when you learn verbs and everything, this has to be a reminder. You don't necessarily have to understand each and everything over here. It's good if you do, but I think it's good to know how the structure works because this is the purpose of the class, Amharic conjugation. You just have to know what it is, okay? Not each meaning or the meaning of each word over here, okay? Because I'll talk about verbs, I'll talk about conjugation specifically in detail in our future video. Now let's talk about forms of sentences in Amharic so that you could be able to know what to put where. So let's start with statement. These are some examples that I'd like to give you. So in English, a statement, I drink coffee, I'm a teacher, he's smart. Check this out. I drink coffee. እኔ ቡና እጠጣለሁ means I drink. So this sentence in English, I drink coffee, cannot function without I. But in Amharic, if you take out ene, it functions. It actually does function. Okay? Bunna እጠጣለሁ. So the verb እጠጣለሁ definitely shows who's talking. Okay? We'll talk about verbs and how verbs are formed in our future videos. But this is what it looks like. I just want you to know the conjugation. Okay? Some of the technical aspects that we'll talk about in the future. But for now, I just want you to know what it looks like, okay? That's it. I am a teacher. أنا ممهر ني. I'm a teacher cannot function without I. What it's going to be termed as is an incomplete sentence. or an ungrammatical sentence. But in Amharic, you can say መምህር ነኝ, because ነኝ entails I. He's smart. እሱ ጎበዝ ነው. እሱ ጎበዝ ነው. Or you can just say ጎበዝ ነው. So ጎበዝ ነው can function without እሱ. But is smart cannot function without he or she. Right? So that's what Amharic is. This is a statement. Let's look at questions in Amharic. In Amharic, for example, I want to say, do you drink coffee? In Amharic, there's no auxiliary verb that could help you to form a question sentence. What you need to do is do something about the tonality, okay? Do something about the sound in there. What are you going to do? Make it sound like a question. How do you do it? አንተ ቡና ትጠጣለህ? That's a question. አንተ ቡና ትጠጣለህ? Make it a question. አንተ ቡና ትጠጣለህ? Okay? አንተ ቡና ትጠጣለህ? Or ቡና ትጠጣለህ? ቡና ትጠጣለህ? Okay? Maybe you want to get him some coffee. ቡና ትጠጣለህ? You have the kettle with you and then you're pouring some coffee in everybody's cup. And you're saying, ቡና ትጠጣለህ? You're asking him before you do that. እሱ መምህር ነው? Is he a teacher? What you need to do is just make it sound like a question. Period. እሷ ጎበዝ ተማሪ ናት? እሷ ጎበዝ ተማሪ ናት? Is she a good student? That's what a question looks like. How about negative? Well, negatives have a different type of form in their verbs. By the way, I'll talk about verbs because that's where most of you guys have a question on. And I could probably dedicate some videos to that so that you could be able to conjugate words, conjugate verbs without any problem. እሺ, negative. አንተ ቡና አትጠጣም. You don't drink coffee. Okay? I know I didn't talk about this, but I think it's important that you know what negatives look like. Because in our future videos, when I talk about verbs, you will have something to recall. Okay? እሺ, አንተ ቡና አትጠጣም. You don't drink coffee. እሱ መምህር አይደለም. He's not a teacher. እሱ መምህር አይደለም. He's not a teacher. እሷ ጎበዝ ተማሪ አይደለችም. እሷ ጎበዝ ተማሪ አይደለችም. Anyway, this is to show you. This is not to complicate things. This is to show you what Amharic conjugation looks like. Just to recap, Amharic is like this. You start with a subject, you go on to the object, and you end it with a verb. Not like English, where you start with a subject and go on to the verb and end it with an object, right? And we have a statement, and we have a question, and we also have negatives. However, when you form questions, you don't need any sort of auxiliary verb that you could pull out of somewhere. All you need to do is make it sound like a question. Do something about your tonality, your voice, your sound, the way you say it. That's what matters. So that's what Amharic conjugation looks like. በጣም አመሰግናለሁ. Listen, if you haven't already, please subscribe, guys. This is the biggest Amharic lesson channel here on YouTube. Hit the like button. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section so that I could be responding to them pretty soon. And that's what it is. Keep practicing. Gobes. If you're interested in our corporate or personal training packages, this is what you need to do. Talk to us at lincolnenglishworld@gmail.com. Or what's up? +251 913 226257. Down there. You can find everything down there. By the way, when you WhatsApp, you know who you're going to talk to? That's me. You will have an amazing time with us. See you in class, everybody.